Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm your host, Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One of the ways that I really like to tap into what's true for me and my most authentic self is to get out in nature. And once upon a time, I lived in New York City, and I was super nature-starved, and I remember taking a trip to Arizona, and on the plane was a gentleman that I ended up speaking to when I left, and I was going to see my aunt who lived in Scottsdale, but he was up in Sedona. So I made sure that I found him again. His name is Rahelio, and he took me through quite a mystic journey there in the Red Rock country, and I've invited him onto the show to talk about the journey from those many years since we've spoken and how the world has been, I'm sure, all the more open to the wisdom that he's got to share. Welcome, Rahelio.
Well, hello there. How are you tonight?
I'm so good. Thank you. It's wonderful to see you after far too long. So it's funny, Tony Sweet, my producer, he was saying, what does Rahelio mean?
Well, Rahelio is kind of a metamorphosis of my birth name, but ultimately Ra connects to the sun, and Helio is the sun's radiance.
I feel that. Okay.
And my birth name, well, I have two names. My ancestry comes out of Mexico. So I have indigenous blood, but also that Hispanic thing. So Rahelio is the Mexican name. I don't really like it. R-O, and my English name is Roger. I didn't like that one either. So I took Ra from Roger and Helio from Rahelio and put Rahelio together. That corresponded with my spiritual awakening back when I was 20 years old. And I was searching for my identity. And I began to awaken on the path of my spiritual path into my indigenous aspect and into Toltec wisdom, and I really went strong into astrology and was discovering self. So Ra and Helio, it's like two aspects of the sun. I'm born with my sun sign in the 5th house. It's a Leo house, the sun house, and I'm a Gemini, so two suns. So it's all interesting symbology.
Oh, yes, and it's so wonderful to interweave all this information and into a meaningful whole for yourself. I love that. So what came first? The understanding, looking at your lineage and your roots, your indigenous roots, or the astrology? And I know they all intertwine, but just curious what sparked for you first?
They were probably simultaneous, but they were two different paths. Because more than looking for my roots, I was looking for my soul. Ah. My roots to the past came through my ancestry came more later, whereas who am I as a spiritual entity came first. And then astrology was a very, very important piece with that. I started first with numerology, looking at my birth date and adding it up, the numbers come up. Like my birth name my birth date adds up to a number 11, which is like an inspirational number or a master number. And my name added up to 7, which is more of towards the mystical or the inward or searching to find the meaning of life. And when I changed my name now is an 1111. And it was later that I began to walk the red road and began to awaken on the shamanic path. And it was catalyzed by certain native elders that I met that were that kind of opened that door for me.
Well, no, and what a path it is. And I was reading in your bio how you've lived in a number of different places to explore it. So it's not that you've necessarily been in Arizona, up in Sedona this entire time. But I think that the experiences initially in the Midwest, and then over to Northern California, correct? And out to Hawaii. So it's very interesting to see how you've really drawn from different traditions and different learnings and certainly different paths to find this one. Because then like I mentioned, I've known you to be there in Arizona for a long time. But tell me about what it was like, what happened in California and ultimately Hawaii. What went on there to make you you?
Well, that's a good question. I like to weave wisdom from various other traditions, major traditions, and find the essence of what it is. just the way that I myself am a mixture of both indigenous and European and other DNA type signatures. So we are all in a new time, and we're by engaging with different perspectives, different cultures, different philosophies, we are awakening to a more expansive perception of the world. And so in the Midwest, I was not awakened on my path yet. I was having mystical experiences. I was having psychic phenomenon and supernatural things, but I was not, my mind hadn't awakened yet. And it's not until I got to California when I turned 19, and I spent a couple of years in a community college in Marin County, where I was, I had become elected to be the head of a Native American student organization. One of the teachers there, his name was Buffalo Boy Canoe. He was a Lakota elder teaching, and the students loved him. And when I arrived on campus and I checked out his class, I felt the power of his the heart wisdom that he was sharing, history from a Native perspective, and it was really eye-opening for me. And he was, well, they were having cutbacks in California, and his teaching credential was one of the more recent teaching positions, and so he was going to lose his job. And his students were really inspired. I was just new in California, and I happened to be in the college visiting, and I knew that I had to go see I needed to be somewhere. I'm in the college visiting, and I thought, oh yeah, I want to go see this Native elders class. And I got there a little bit late, maybe like 5-10 minutes late, and I peeked in the door real quick. I didn't want to disturb the class, but it had been opened up and become, instead of one room, it was 3 rooms. And it was really big, a lot of students in there. They had these TV news cameras, a number of cameras, and the microphones up there. And I peeked in, I was really surprised. I had forgotten about, his teaching credential coming to an end at the school because of the cutback and the financial thing. So I peeked in, and he saw me, and he called me up to the front of the room with everybody, in front of all the cameras, and he had me hitting on the drum, and he gave me a lot of recognition. And so when the next semester began in late January, I was looking for where I belonged in that college and what was happening. All these students were very inspired to do something with this, and this the Native American student organization, political activism, etc. And they saw me, and they wanted me to be the head of that. And so that started me off, really getting into my Native ancestry and working in more political activism with Native cultures there in Northern California. I would write letters and bring in speakers to the college, Native American movement leaders, etc. But as I began to also have a spiritual awakening, I began to study metaphysical topics, and I began to have very powerful mystical shifts take place within me that I knew I had to drop out of the college, and went to Hawaii. I had a friend invite me to come to Hawaii. I did meet an elder named Rolling Thunder that week before going to Hawaii who wanted me to come and train with him. But I was already set going to Maui. So as much as it would kind of tore me, because I really wanted to be with the elder to be trained by, Hawaii was pulling me stronger. So he said to me, okay, you won't be able to come, but later you're going to walk the red road, like as a medicine person. So I spent my 6 years or so on Maui, and I traveled coming back Los Angeles and Phoenix, and I got to Sedona 7 years later, and then began to have mystical experiences with the Native American spirit powers, the grandfather spirits, and also Native people came to me in my dreams, and they were very adamant about me walking the path and doing prayers and songs and teaching and doing it the right way. It was very, very, they were very, those Indian people were very in the spirit. In the dream time, they came to me in my dreams. Without speaking to me, they were telling me, do the songs, do it the right way, do it the right way. They were kind of pushing me, and I kind of pushed back, like, I didn't grow up with that, so, somebody's got to teach me. And then within the next year or so, Native elders came down, medicine people teaching sweat lodges and, the perspectives that they were being moved to share with us. And I took on a lot of that wisdom, and, a lot of what I was already doing was already very similar. The way I did my ceremonies, the way I did things I did, I already kind of had a natural understanding, from previous lifetimes, you might say, that I already was doing this kind of thing. And I think one of the main things happened for me, though, when I lived in Hawaii, is I had a UFO encounter. I had a close encounter with a UFO that hovered over my head, about 40 yards, 30, 40 yards over my head, was right above me. Ooh. It was bright like a lightning bolt, and it just jolted me, but very inspirational, very high frequency. And my friends who were in the house, they heard it and they saw the light outside, so they came out. I saw them turn the porch light on and come out and yell out to me, "Rahelio, it's a UFO." And I was a little flabbergasted. I knew it was a UFO, but my rational mind would not go there. My rational mind was saying, it's not a plane. It's got like a long wing, but it's not, there's no nose or tail. It's hovering. It's not a plane. And I was explaining why it wasn't a helicopter. And then they came out yelling out, "It's a UFO." And then I had to laugh to myself that, oh yeah, it's a UFO. And my rational mind had to let go of those questions.
Well, right. No, and I mean, I can certainly understand, but it's fascinating that you didn't default to the fact that it's a UFO, that you had to have been as open as you were to other mystical experiences. That was super unexpected, huh?
Well, my mystical awakening was so strong that it was almost overwhelming, the power of what I was shown through supernatural experiences, that I said, it's too powerful for me. I just want to know before I get open too much to something that I can't handle. So I was studying, and I was obsessively studying, and I became obsessively studying astrology. That was one of my main ways to understand reality, the nature of reality. And because astrology is quantum physics of the psyche. And so because I was so intense with my mind, everything I had to answer all my questions. And I'd have questions, and the spirit would give me answers out of the blue. So it was very, so I had to feed my mind first, and then now I can be quiet. And now I can just understand without having to think about it and get the thinking out of the way.
That's nice. I think we can certainly take that as a lesson, just in general, whether, whatever we're thinking about, but, it's just finish thinking it.
Yeah, you think about it, you figure out, then stop the mind, because the mind is the problem.
No, it's true.
In the shamanic wisdom, it's about silent wisdom.
Silent wisdom.
You're not asking any more questions, you're just doing. You have body knowingness. It's kind of like starting a job, and you may not know how to do that job when you first start with it, and you have to think about what you're doing, but when you finally know how to do it, you don't think anymore, you just do. It's kind of like sports. A lot of athletes, the commentators will say, this person has all the skills, but they're overthinking it. They need to get out of their head and just do. And so this is so true with shamanism, is that you have to just go with your knowing and stay out of the rational mind.
So you've worked with thousands of people through your years there, helping them. And again, as I mentioned in the intro of the show, really bringing people to a pristine place like Sedona with the energy of the vortexes and certainly the rocks. So please tell us a little bit about what it's like to go on a mystical tour with you and how you work with people out there.
Well, you see this view behind me. This is one of the places I like going a lot. This is my office on the mountain, you might say. I do a lot of my work. There's a lot of places I go to, but when you come into the land, sometimes it just touches you like, oh my God, this is incredible. People say, I can't believe my eyes. They see some of these power spots, the beauty of the land here. It's kind of a jolt. The sacred land, there's a lot of energy. You might say the lightning energy is strong in the mountains. The mountains are much like pyramids, temples, they're holding power. So you drive in, you go like, oh my God, this land is incredible. So that opens people up to begin to get in touch with their selves, their inner self. It's like, oh my God, it connects you to the source, to your breath, to the beauty around you. It begins to awaken you. So I've been blessed to be a guide to bring people to the land. And more than anything, I want to have people experience it deeper than just a hike or just a talk. I want people to feel a deep connection, so I lay them down on the earth and I drum on them, the heartbeat over their bodies, and the drum is pulsing through them, and I guide them to feel the heartbeat of the Mother Earth and to feel the wind and to breathe in their prayers and to feel their oneness and let go and just relax and receive and take them deep into a quiet mind so they begin to dream awake and have a vision experience. So it's very visionary. It's like a mini vision quest for many people and very healing for people. So I teach about the nature of the earth energy, the energy grids, the vortex phenomenon, and share a lot of ideas like that help people to get a better understanding what this is all about.
Well, I certainly had a great experience when I worked with you, and again, it's been a long time, so I wouldn't expect that you would necessarily remember, but we were in a cave. You took us into a cave and you played the flute. And again, I was New York City girl, rock and roll, music biz, just interested for sure, but not experienced at all. And, just that quiet, just the depth and darkness, and the concept of the cave being in a womb and a return to the womb. So I'm just reminding you of something that you shared with me firsthand one time. And then I also did a medicine wheel with you. So when you talked about lying on the earth, we were on the red rocks. And so why don't you share a little bit about what the medicine wheel is like? And I know that you tie it into astrology, so I'd like to hear that too, please.
Yes, indeed. Oh, and I'll say also the idea of the cave, a lot of that is the experience in the sweat lodge ceremony in the womb of the mother, which is in the darkness. When we go to sleep, we go into the darkness. When we're in the womb of our mother in the darkness, and we gestate and we dream our lives. So the sweat lodge is a teaching for the night side of our consciousness. Our left-hand side is our night side. Our right brain crosses over our night side, and our right hand, our daytime side, our left brain crosses over. And so the medicine wheel is a description for the daytime reality, the daytime. So our daytime is our rational mind, our thinking, our doing, how we invest our heart into our lives. Our ego gets invested. We get attached to things. And so the daytime, as we describe our reality, the more we understand it, the more we can master it. And that's our male aspect, our description and our doing, our yin and our yang. You see my necklace has this yin-yang on it. This is a symbol out of Mexico. The Maya and the Toltec use this symbol. It's the galactic center, the heart of the galaxy. The galaxy is a living conscious entity of the Great Spirit. And we call this the galactic butterfly. And at its highest essence is pure love. But when we come down into 3D, we forget that we come from that source. We come down and incarnate into this physical world, and we are traveling on the earth, making a circle around the sun for our year cycle, and we have a day and night cycle, yin and yang. Everything is dancing in consciousness of the 4 seasons and the year cycle, day cycle, the life cycle. This is the medicine wheel. And so it's a cycle of consciousness. And so the more we can describe our reality and master our description by how we do what we do, the more we create success and fulfill our purpose. Except for the day cycle can be somewhat stressful because there's so much to have to do and maintain and keep it going. And after a while, we just need a vacation or we just need to retire because we can only do so much. Mm-hmm. And we only got so much energy in a lifetime, so much energy in a daytime that we have to master our use of energy. Otherwise, we burn ourselves out. And so mastering energy, mastering our description, mastering our doing are the teachings of the day side. And it corresponds with our medicine wheel teaching. And then the night side, we go into the unconscious mind. When we sleep, we're dreaming. And our dreaming, we call that the second attention. The first attention, the day mind, the second attention, our dreaming side. And when we're sleeping is when you connect with healing energy from your soul. So the day sides are male, the night is our female. So our female side, the left side is our healing side. And that's, women hold that polarity, and women are all natural healers. unless they've been damaged by their upbringing or their surroundings. So women hold this healing frequency, and the dreaming, the women are more profound dreamers than the men are in general. Not all, but in general, women are more intuitive and more what they call irrational. They're getting information through non-rational means, through their psychic and perceptions, and that's coming through the dream mind. So we have these two sides. So I like that duality, the medicine wheel and the sweat lodge. The greatest shamans and mystics, they can go into the unconscious mind awake. Mm-hmm. Most of us human beings, we fall asleep and we go unconscious. We're sleeping unconscious and then we're dreaming. So great shamans and mystics can go into the unconscious and be awake and dream awake, and in dreaming awake and dream and make manifest into the world miracles. We all can bring our dreams down and manifest miracles, because we all have glimpses of inspiration that connect us there. But most people are dreaming unconscious, and they wake up, and in this lifetime, they're still living unconscious. Have you ever driven somewhere, and maybe even a long-distance drive, and you haven't even been conscious of driving, you've just been going, and you've been somewhere else with your mind? And so we do this every day. We get into automatic pilot, and we're just living our life on automatic pilot. And I said, wait a second, I need to take a break. I need, the weekend has come, and now I have to do what I want to do to feel good about my life and connect with my dreams and celebrate my life. And so in the same way, we want to break out of our routines and go to someplace sacred to connect with our dream. And what's our spiritual guidance? What's love? What is the meaning of our life? And we come on our vision quest or our pilgrimages to sacred sites and reconnect with that inspiration that is our connection to the source, higher self. So, like say the medicine wheel, the astrology, the medicine wheel is astrology wheel. And as we understand the medicine wheel, I like to cross the perceptions, the perspectives of the medicine wheel and the sweat lodge. I should say the medicine wheel and the astrology chart. Basically, I cross everything. Everything is connected. Every wisdom has a synthesis point, and that's kind of like my strength. It makes me unique. If anybody that I've, people say, where can I find that information? It's like, that's my information because I'm unique in how I put those pieces together as I integrate different wisdom teachings and traditions.
It's there's so much there, and again, like I said, I had experiences. There were times that I was. Living in California at this point in my life, it's a lot different than when I was 20 years younger and city girl. So, and Rahelio, I definitely want to say that you put me on my path a lot, and it's great to see the work that you're continuing to do there and touch many. And I think that there's that many more people that are open and are hearing it. So, do you feel encouraged by the development of human consciousness? I'm both encouraged and discouraged. I'm encouraged by the many people that continue to come and that are awakening and doing the spiritual work and are very sincere that way. I'm a bit discouraged by the extremism in people's political beliefs and extremism in conspiracy ideas that may have some truth there, but it's taking people. It's distracting them from the truth of what they really need to be doing. Fighting against the shadow of the deep state or this negative force and feeling like you're a victim or you're angry to that, it's not helping your soul to awaken to greater light and, awaken to the frequency of your self-realization. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. When you mentioned conspiracies, I want to, there's a lot of thought around what goes on with UFOs and extraterrestrials. So going back to your experience in Hawaii, and I'd just like to ask, where do you stand on how things, perhaps living there? Do you have further experience? Is it a different dimension? I'm sure that, again, with as a practitioner of shamanism, that you have an understanding of that dimensionality, and also tying it into shamanic study and knowledge, the star people. So, we've known about. That's ancient reference, correct, to those beyond. So what are we supposed to be learning from them?
All of our ancient cultures that are building pyramids and megalithic sites, those are all in the influence of star people. Now, the stars themselves are conscious entities. Those are the star people on that highest level. But then there are the extraterrestrials who are like human or human-like, that in many of our mythologies that were some of our mythological gods, and they had their presence on the planet. And, if you ever looked at Old Testament, in some places you see God's very, very loving. In other places, he's very, very angry and vengeful and kind of scary. This may actually even be two different gods being represented. And it represents also that the ancient, what they call Anunnaki, from the Sumerian writings, tell the story of how the gods were at war with each other, the factions are fighting. You find this in the Hindu traditions where Krishna was in a 27-year war. And so all these traditions speak of the warfare amongst the gods. So, like a Star Wars thing going on back in the past. So, but, the greatest teaching is about the power of love, because the Great Spirit, the pure source, is love. And our key to eternity is that door opens through the power of love, by raising our frequency through love. And, looking at people's near-death experiences and hearing the stories of how they've touched into the universe, they would say, like, I was having a death experience and I was scared to death because that's our primal fear, is to die. They struggled to hold on and cross over, and said it was so beautiful, the universal consciousness, the light of eternity was there, and it was divine consciousness. And whatever I wanted to know, the answers were given to me. There's many people who have had experiences like that. My experiences, I haven't had the death and crossed over, even though I've gone through many ego deaths, but mine was, I was actually taken into the fifth dimension. And at that level, I felt like I was as if I was a god. When my veil was off, and I was fully awake. And in that place, no rational thinking mind, just deep, direct knowingness. It's like you're all-knowing, but there's nothing to know. There's no questions. Everything is known. And as you need to know, those answers are provided to you as you need them. And your mind can create. Your mind has such power to create. So down here in the 3D, we're learning how to be responsible for our mental creations, our emotional creations, our attachments, our ego karma. We're here to fine-tune ourselves, to become more superconductive, so that we're not in the way because the ego is clinging to foolishness or stupidity. But as we begin to become transpersonal, our prayers take on a greater power. Our prayers begin to be a conduit for the universal power to come through. Because human beings, we're fragile human beings. Our health, our bodies, we're mortals. We live a short lifetime, so we have to come to terms with this mortality, and what comes next, and who is it that lives on, and who is it that dies. The body stays behind, the spirit goes on, but how do we awaken to that power here now to find the meaning of our life and make it find fulfillment in our purpose? So ultimately, all we take with us is the quality of our relationships with life, with ourselves, with others. Is the power of love. Do we have unresolved karma? Do we have bad relations? Do we have negative feelings and guilt, shame, and regret? Or have we been responsible to clear that up and to make right our relations, our actions, and say thank you and say I'm sorry and do our best and just be a whole human being? So this is what, like, the medicine wheel helps us to connect with our place in the circle of life. And so as an astrology wheel, there are teachings that come with that, because each of the four directions is a power. Like, we look at the idea of the medicine wheel, it is a mirror of our own soul. Or we are a mirror of the galactic. The whole galaxy is a spinning wheel, a spinning vortex of stars. In the center is the black hole. That is the Hunab Ku, coming out of the void, out of the blackness. Consciousness has come forth out of the nothingness. And in this oneness of consciousness, it divides into two, yin and yang. It's like electromagnetic, maybe even matter and antimatter. Different aspects of this duality can play. And so we are that, And so when the galaxy is spinning and creating a great wheel of stars, that vortex, that's the popular term that's on the vortexes. So that vortex is consciousness itself, Great Spirit. And so that is also us. And in regards to our local system, out of the mystery came forth the light. That is the sacred fire. The center of the medicine wheel is the fire. And there would be 7 stones around that fire. These would be the 7 sacred dancers. And so that fire would be the sun, and those 7 dancers would be the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Those are the emanations of the physical manifestation of the 7 spirits that oversaw our creation. There's the 7 days of creation, 7 attributes. The universe seems to work to the power of 7, the 7 sacred, chakras, rainbow colors, musical notes, 7 days of the week. Everything is mirror to this sacred 7. And so we have the 4 cardinal directions, east, south, west, and north. Each holds a teaching that we have to master. The power above us, or to Sky Father, and the Mother Earth below us. That makes 6 directions. So there are 6 major initiations or tests that we have to master to graduate this earth plane into enlightenment consciousness. The 7th is the awakening to the light of the divine within us. And so, say in an astrology chart, you have your rising sign. So in the medicine wheel, the rising sign is the power of the east. East is our awakening. The sun rises. Who am I? How do I fulfill my destiny? Who am I, and where am I coming from? What's my my link to the past from the spirit? How do I awaken to my true self? So in the astrology chart, that's your rising sign. It's going to be ruled by one of those 7 planets I just mentioned. And where that planet falls in your 12 houses, you have 12 hours of the day and 12 hours of the night, 12 months of the year, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 inches in a foot. So that 12 houses, that rising sign, its ruling planet's going to fall in one of those 12 houses. And that's where you're going to go to awaken on your path. Who am I? How do I initiate my self-discovery? In which house? And the 12 houses mirror the 12 signs of the zodiac. So there's going to tell you a lot right there about your path of self-discovery. And then you have the sun and the moon, the conscious and the unconscious. The sun is your creative purpose, your identity, your individuality. It's going to fall in one of those 12 houses. That's going to give a focus to your creative expression, your self-realization. You're actualizing your creative potential. And you have the moon. The moon is the reflected light of the sun. The moon is reflection. The light recognizes the aspects of our emotional needs, our feelings, our responses, our habits, our security patterns, our conditions, our home and family conditions. So these are the 3 big indicators in astrology: the rising sign, the sun, and the moon, the yin and the yang. And the sun and the moon will also mirror within you some of the dynamics of the psychology of your father and your mother. And when we look at the soul's evolution and what are we really here for, what are the deepest soul lessons we've come to deal with, we're dealing with Pluto, the Lord of Death. He's not one of the 7 I mentioned earlier, but Pluto, Lord of Death. And he's going to fall in one of those 12 houses. He's going to talk about where your greatest personal transformation comes from. And he's going to be in a sign. Every generation has a sign, but every individual has a house position for their planets. And it could be any one of the 12 houses. There's going to be the deepest soul transformation you're going to go through. And Pluto on an instinctual unconscious level, has to do with, like say, unconscious security patterns. What I need to be secure. That's why we get addicted. I get obsessed. I gotta have this. And whatever we cling to, the Buddha says that's where your karma is, that's where your ignorance is, and it gets you stuck through your attachments, stuck in the cycle of reincarnation. So Pluto shows where we're attached and stuck in the lower self, and where we have to go through a death and metamorphosis to awaken to the higher self, our soul evolutionary journey. So from the lowest to the highest. And so because we can't see Pluto, we call him the nighttime ruler of the sign Scorpio. Scorpio is a scorpion stinging life and death. So in Scorpio we see the greatest struggle of light and darkness within our psyches, both personally and on a collective level. And the daytime ruler of Scorpio is Mars. We can all see Mars in the sky. Mars is how we consciously project our desire into the world and discover ourselves through our doing. So when we find where Pluto is in your chart, we can see where your soul's deepest level of attachment and where your power of your desire is most focused, where you're evolving through your desire. But it's more of an unconscious dynamic, because unconscious security, obsessive compulsive type of a thing, whereas where the moon makes its orbit around the earth, the lunar nodes, the south node and the north node of the moon, the south node is showing the past life dynamics. It indicates where you're coming from, what patterns you're bringing through. And most often we've been reincarnating over and over on this earth, but some people are coming from other time-space realities, but it shows where your soul's coming from the past and where you're going to anchor most naturally to express yourself and find your security. It's going to be ruled by a planet. And it's going to be in one of those 12 houses that shows where you're, and it's going to make aspects to the other planets. It's going to talk a lot about the patterns you're bringing through from your past life. And then the north node of the moon is going to show how you're evolving into this lifetime, where your life is taking you. And it's going to be ruled by a planet, and that's going to be in a house and making aspects. That's going to describe your journey to discover yourself as far as how am I growing and evolving and adapting in this lifetime now. Because, quite often we don't want to let go of our security. We don't want to jump into the unknown because that creates insecurity. And so we're holding on, even if it's not a positive situation. People don't want to let it go, to stay in difficult relationships or difficult work situations or difficult life situations instead of moving into something else because they're afraid of something being even maybe worse, facing the unknown. But as we have courage and grow, and as we advance on our path, we begin to embrace the thrill of that growth and to face the unknown and to push our limits, that we continue to evolve and expand who we are and create success. So the astrology wheel is like, the astrology planets is the same as quantum physics. Today people are talking about free energy technology and the Taurus and this vortex dynamic. So when I was contemplating astrology way back when, I realized those are the same exact concepts. Is this free energy dynamic is also us. We are the potential for free energy technology, superconductivity, when we begin to understand and master our own consciousness. This is why those who have walked the path of the shamanism and of the mystics have been able to turn into balls of light and shapeshift and evolve and step out of this 3D and move on into the heaven realms when they want to. Because we are just consciousness having a dream here in the 3D, but we really are much more than what we think. The main thing is how do we begin to awaken and actualize that greater potential?
Smashing. I mean, speechless, really. There's so much there, Rahelio. Thank you. And truly, you have given us multiple examples of that exploration, whether it's actually finding you and being literally in the red rocks, or an exploration of our own astrological makeup. And what does that mean? I like to use the term star weather. What was the weather? What weather was happening when we were born, and how we can learn from that and continue to learn. Astrology doesn't have to be about forecasting. It's really about self-exploration. But then you invite us, when you use the word vortex, and I'm kind of thinking about the vortexes of Sedona, right? And you were talking about the vortexes of the planets, the galaxies, and the motion. And yet you're bringing it down to the red rock country there that is so, so beautiful. I had a real aha around that. So there's so much there, and you've got so much to offer. And I want to I'll ask you, I know that if people are going to Sedona, that you do guide tours and other activities, weddings and sweat lodges. And do you do astrological readings for people?
I do a lot of astrological readings. And usually with the reading, I do a healing session with it. I developed some healing methods. I looked at various shamanic traditions, and I saw how they were doing their healing work, and cross-cultural. You can see a lot of it today in the Taoist and the Asian who are doing acupuncture points and qigong and kung fu, this kind of thing, martial arts, and looking at the Native American healing methods from both South American and North and Central American Native traditions, and then looking at some of our modern healing systems coming out now with the magnetism and light frequencies and these kind of things. So I kind of combine a little bit of all that, and I'm very effective at helping people clear trauma, addiction, anxiety, self-talk that is sabotaging and negative thoughts and depression, things that people get traumatized by, grief, loss. A lot of people lack faith in themselves. They have fear of the future, this kind of thing. So I'm really good at pulling that out of people. And I look at the natal chart. I read their chart, see what's going on, and see what it shows me. Because I don't look into somebody clairvoyantly and read them psychically that way. Because I've trained my mind to do it through the astrology.
Right.
And then I can update it and say what's going on now. Like, how is this affecting your life now? And what are your choices? And because it's not set, like your destiny is not set with that chart. You have some free will there, and you have a free will of how am I going to respond to this situation. And if I respond in the positive way to the situation, then whatever negative repercussions I could have come into, I don't have to go through that at all if I'm just conscious. And so becoming more conscious with our choices and less attached to our desires, more in attunement to our inner knowing. And so the astrology chart, like a weather report, gives you perspectives about what your future is bringing. And we can see potential events, and the potential positive ones you can work towards, and the potential negative ones you can work to neutralize them. And you're not bound by the chart, but it's nice to know. Like, people come back to me quite often I need my update to see what's going on now, and you gave me some dates, and these things that you said happened, and I understood what that meant, so I shifted away from that. So this chart gives you some freedom. We're not in a fatalistic system, even though some people want to make everything pre-planned and predestined, and it's all. I believe that we have the power of choice to shift our moment by moment. And the Great Spirit gives us that power. And in the mystery of consciousness, only the Great Spirit ultimately knows how it all plays out. Also, you mentioned, astrocartography. I was fascinated with astrocartography. When I was in Hawaii in the 80s, I was really obsessed with astrology. I was drawing charts on maps by hand, and I was mapping astrocartography by hand because I wanted to connect that Earth influence with the planets, where they are on the Earth. And I saw some really significant things. When I traveled from the Midwest, I was, in the state of Iowa and West Des Moines, and I traveled my east-west axis right to the planet. It's a minor planet called Chiron. He's the wisdom teacher, wounded healer. He was the teacher of Hercules and the Greek heroes, and those guys were demigods. They were half god, half human. And so he's helping them to actualize their full potentials, and they had tasks they had to go and perform, and if they could be successful, and usually that task was to help humanity, serve humanity in some way, they could be successful doing that task, they'd become immortals at the end of their life and claim their immortality. So Chiron, wisdom teacher, wounded healer, anybody who's on the spiritual path as a teacher, healer, is going to have a strong Chiron energy and have to come to terms with healing their own inner woundedness in order to integrate this to. Not all healers do that. Not all teachers integrate that Chiron, but we all have to. And not just healers and teachers, but anybody who's is a creative actualization has to come through Chiron. Stars, celebrities, etc. A lot of them get very successful, then their life comes crashing down because they haven't integrated that Chiron wound.
Interesting.
So when I was born, Chiron was due east. Due east. And Jupiter and Pluto were pretty close to due west in my chart. When I traveled to Marin County, California, I went I went west, but east-west goes all the way around the world, so it's the same circle. It's one big circle all the way around.
Right.
I traveled on my Chiron line right over to where I went to school and had my awakening there. And then when I was dropping out of college and going to Maui, I followed that Chiron line right to Hawaii. And I left on a full moon, was Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Leo. The full moon I left to go to Hawaii on that auspicious full moon. In my chart I have Mars at 23 Aquarius, Jupiter 23 Leo. When I got to Hawaii, the noon position, the midheaven of my chart is 23 Leo. My Jupiter's there and Mars 23 Aquarius at the midnight place. So my travel, my chart, and the timing was all synchronized in such a way that it kind of blew my mind, like, oh my God, it's all connected.
Yeah.
Everything is connected. I said, oh my God. So I was very thrilled about doing astrocartography, and so people always want to know about where they should be living, and tell me where I should live. I said, I can't tell you where you want to live, but where do you feel you want to go? Where's your intuition telling you? And let's see what it looks like. And some places you're not meant to be there a long time, but just a short time. In other places, because you have a lot of growth comes, and then it's time to go. And so when you have positive, energies from the planetary indicators being activated, and you go to an area that is like that, there's a really good time to be there. But if you have, some very powerful energies, like for me over Hawaii, you got Jupiter and got Pluto close by the Hawaiian Islands, and the transit of Pluto, Lord of Death and Transformation, was crossing over the noon position of my chart. Sunrise, noon, midnight, sunset, and midnight. Those are the four angles of the chart. Anything triggers them, it brings a lot of changes in your life. Pluto is hitting my noon place, my midheaven. I have a Pluto very strong over Hawaii, and things begin to die. I thought I was never going to leave Hawaii because I loved it so much there. Had a UFO encounter there. Had been blessed. I was so connected to Maui, and then Pluto hits, and it's like everything's dying. I have to leave.
Wow.
And I left, and I traveled, and arrived in Sedona. And the day I arrived, the star people beamed into my mind and said, "This is where you come to do your work. You're to be a spiritual guide. There'll be thousands and thousands of people coming to looking for answers. You're to answer their questions. Speak of love and inspiration. There's going to be a great awakening coming. It's been prophesied by the ancient cultures around the world. This time is coming." So we're going through this time of earth changes, and it's kind of this quickening, the purification time on the earth, which can be kind of frightening for people. But the star people said that we're going to come into the great enlightenment before things go too bad.
Please. So encouraging. Rahelio, thank you. You were so very, very generous with your vast wisdom, and I'm sure it's inspiring for others to find you. And quite simply, it's rahelio.com, RAHELIO.com. And I hope to see you again in Sedona sometime. You have been one of the teachers on my path from a long, long time ago. So I say namaste. I bow to you on that one, and I'm happy to see you well and ever so wise, and again very generous. So gratitude to you.
So was that 30 years ago?
I don't. Yeah, we're not going to talk. Yeah, I was just 10 when I came to see you. Yeah, nice. I mean, it probably was. It really probably was. So, again, a blessing, and come back and see us again and sometime, and talk to us about that white buffalo that's on your shirt. For those of us that happen to be watching on YouTube,
it's a part of the prophecies that we're in now, the time of purification. Indeed. And you see, like, not only white buffaloes, but you're seeing white whales, white lions, white deer. Yeah, exactly. White eagles.
I think a white moose.
They're everywhere. The white, some type of a shift in the Earth's frequency is creating this within the animals as a part of this prophecy time. So it's very important for us to get our spiritual life right. We can't be afraid of death. When you get on this shamanic path, the spiritual path, it's about confronting death. Death is the great advisor, where you look at death and say, okay, if I die tomorrow, Do I have regrets? Have I made use of my life? Have I contributed to the well-being of, the collective? Have I lived in harmony with Mother Earth? Have I learned what I'm here to do? And have I shared from my heart? Have I awakened to my fullest potential, relatively speaking, accessible to me? And so the animals appearing, the white buffalo, this is a reminder that this time that we're in is about awakening to this spiritual power, higher self. We are moving between the fifth sun, the Mayan Toltec calendar, and into the sixth sun. So the fifth sun, we call that a daytime sun. It's where you're actively manifesting your happiness. Mm-hmm. You are actively taking the initiative to create your dreams, overcome your obstacles, conquer the world. Looking for happiness outside yourself. We're going into, and that's a male sun. We're going into a female sun. We're in transition between these two now. They're overlapping each other. And the female is more connected with my inner feelings and what's my inner vision and what's my dreams. As we begin to awaken to our dreams, we can awaken to the dimensional shift into the fifth dimension. There was a song called The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius back in the 60s.
Of course, one of my favorites.
It was sung by a band called The Fifth Dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So these ideas have been given to us from the star people. Many of our wisdom teachers, our elders around the world, have been contacted by star people, given the wisdom that this time is now. Keep reminding the people to wake up. The Great Awakening is coming. Don't be afraid of the changes. You can only die and go to heaven if you're living from your heart and doing good with your karma. And so if you can do right and get your life right, there's no fear to die, because you're going to go to a much greater place when you cross over. But before we go to that great place, we have the chance to step up to heaven on this earth. That's in the fifth dimension. It's in our lifetimes, and we still have to go through some major challenges, of course. We still have to learn how to share the planet. We still have to deal with the changes of the earth itself, because the Earth Mother's changes are going to be one of the catalysts to wake people up. Wake us up to either cooperate and learn to live in harmony and learn to connect with the spirit of life through nature.
Yes, and that's...
Or we're gonna be in war and struggle and have a choice of, Armageddon that some people are hoping for.
I know,
the people who are the spirit of war that, the Middle East and Israel and the whole Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan, this whole war spirit that doesn't want to cooperate because everybody's clinging to controlling the world. So this is why those of us who are awakening on the path of the light, of the sacred, of the shamanic, of the mystical, we have to gather together or take time to put our prayer intent. We got to gather with prayerful intent. We have to have peaceful demonstrations. We have to hold a light that can expose the shadow and the darkness of what is wrong. We have to be able to find what we agree upon and not be divided by religious or ideological or religious political beliefs that can make people, at odds with each other.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you again. So much to know and so much to believe, but I think, so much of what you've described, it all comes down to love and remembering the love of our Mother Earth. And again, I have such an association with you and in such a beautiful place. So Rahelio, come back again soon. Thank you so much. Definitely find him at rahelio.com, everybody. Really appreciate your time so very much. And thank you, Conscious Community. Truth Be Told Transformation is looking to speak with people to help us guide our way, again, to a higher purpose and a higher place on our planet. And we are part of Truth Be Told with Tony Sweet, which is a live show every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific. And Robert Hensley has the Minuteman Report on Mondays at 3 p.m. as well. Please, if you're coming to see us, we want to let in Southern California, we want to let you know, do so on April 1st for the Parapod Festival. We're really, really excited. We will actually have stargazing on March 31st, so you'll want to be there for both of those events. And it's our first ever gathering, so it's going to be amazing. That would be parapodfestival.com. And again, we are just looking to gather to raise the vibe, everybody. So thank you for watching. And until the next time, shine on. Namaste.
Oh.
Aho.